We are the Y'all Show, talk with a Southern accent. I'm John Rawl. Good to have everybody back here on this Tuesday edition of the program covering everything across the Southeast. And we bring on now to our show, to our segment, to close out this exciting edition, our barbecue barrister, Matt Heermans. And it is so wonderful to bring him back on the show because let's be honest, I don't know how we don't have him on every single day of the Y'all Show. He has so much good stuff, and I'm going to make him work doubly on today's y'all show. In fact, I'm going to get him to be a little scientific on today's Y'all Show. Matt Heermans, welcome back to the program, sir.
I heard the word scientific. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. See y'all later.
Yeah, well, don't do that. Don't do that. We need you, sir. We need you. We need you, oh barrister. How you doing? You looking good. You are mustacheless this week.
Yeah, I missed it. It was, it was a Corona stash. It's meant to block germs, but my wife did not approve of it, so I gave her a Mother's Day present, which was free and just required a razor. So here I am.
Is that a current theme going on, a trending deal, a Corona stash? If so, I missed the memo.
No, I think it was just in my house, and it's dead now.
The main thing is, did your wife grow a Corona stash?
Thank God she didn't. Thank God she didn't.
Or at least tell me she at least shaved her legs at least once over the last 2 months.
Yeah. The leg beard, no, none of that. It was just me messing around. You're in the house for a long time. You don't have to put on a suit or anything, and all of a sudden you're looking like, got a mustache. You're like Burt Reynolds and all kinds of stuff. So I already missed it. I feel like I've really lost something by shaving it off, but I'm going to try to cope.
You cope and you cope well. Matt Heermans, you brought up the big holiday that we celebrated on Sunday, and that was Mother's Day 2020. And I don't know if you had a chance to get out. You live in one of those states that's kind of coming back to life a little bit. I don't know if you went out to eat on Sunday in celebration of your wife, as she had her first Mother's Day as a mom. So congratulations to the Mrs. Barrister on that feat. Did you go out, or did you treat her to a Sunday feast?
Well, thank you, first of all. And no, you're right. We're kind of quasi-opened, and we got a kiddo, and the crowds have kind of come back down to our island here, and so it went from being, dead to just wild. So we did not go out with the baby, but we did. We did procure a fantastic meal from a local place. I just went and picked it up, brought it back here, and we ate, and so it was very nice. It was very nice. And I shaved the mustache. I'm sure that was the highlight of her weekend, honestly. So it was a great time. It was a great weekend, despite the fact we weren't able to really go out and fight through the crowds or whatever. Just but yeah, great. It was a great weekend.
So no Barbecue Barrister original dish for Mother's Day 2020, eh?
You know what? I fell down on the job, to be honest with you. I just cooked steaks, and then on Sunday I did a couple racks of ribs. So
you did do some work.
What's that?
I thought you just took the whole day off. It sounds like you did do some grilling on Mother's Day.
I did, yeah, I did. My wife went to see her mother, who's on the other side of town. So I took the opportunity to throw some ribs on there, just to do it because I love doing it, and then we ended up grilling steaks that night. So nothing big, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing special. But she wanted steak, and so that's what we did. And then we had a nice lunch from a local place. So didn't break any new barbecue ground, but had a great Mother's Day and made the wife happy, which is important.
Okay. Well, here is my question, Barrister. What, in your definition of being our barbecue barrister, and we're a little late on this, so I guess we need to all write little notes to ourselves and stick it in the back of the drawer and pull it out about a year from now. What is your definition of Mother's Day food? What are the things that we should be eating on Mother's Day? Because I have my own opinion that I want to get your tips on, but let's hear from you first.
Yeah. I think of sweet stuff, honestly. Like, I think of Mother's Day, I think of chocolate, I think of a dessert. We don't eat a whole lot of desserts, but, we did on Mother's Day. I think of stuff that, mothers like. They tend to like chocolatey things and splurging on a little bit of dessert. Something fancy, maybe a little bit fancy. If you're going out with the family, you're not going to drag your kiddos to a really five-star type meal or whatever. But a lot of folks are able to go out, so and a lot of you can still get a babysitter, and so I think of something to thank your wife and thank the moms in your life. And so I think of a little bit upscale, but fancy, and I think of dessert, man. I got to be honest with you.
You think more
I think of sweet
dessert than
stuff.
I really was kind of pushing you to give us an answer on the meat for Mother's Day.
Ah,
What's the Mother's Day meat
gotta be
according to our barbecue barrister?
something a little bit, like I say, fancy. Do a little decadent, a steak, right? Steak is good. You can't go wrong if you know what you're doing.
And you had that on
Around
Saturday evening.
we had the steak Saturday evening, and
Okay.
we did when we did our little pickup lunch on Sunday. So she was very excited about that. So I think you can't go wrong with steak if you know what you're doing. You can't go wrong with a steak on Mother's Day. It's a little bit fancy. It's a little bit upscale. Everybody loves it, and may make your mom and your life feel special.
Now the real big question, the one that I get paid the big pesos here on the Y'all Show for, Matt Hermans. Let's tap into your maternal instincts. Let's tap into your female instincts here. Is it okay to take a female, a mother out to eat on Mother's Day, or deep down they really want you to cook for them? You tell me the answer because I know nothing about females.
Oh, really? Okay. I think we both have little rugrats that maybe disprove that theory, but I will.
I know nothing about the way females think. Let me clarify that.
Okay, well, you're barking up the wrong tree here too. No, I would say Mother's Day from my experience, and I grew up in a family of 4 kids, so my mother wanted to get the heck out of the house for Mother's Day. Okay, so that's been my experience as well. I think, especially if you are a mother or your wife is a mother or you have a mom in your life that spends a lot of time at the house, maybe dealing with the kids, maybe running the household. She may want to get a little bit of an escape. She may want to get the heck out of the house. I know for a fact that that's probably what my wife would have liked to have done, but situation we're in, of course, right now with the crowds and things like that, probably wasn't in the cards. So I would be very, very sure if we were playing Family Feud. I mean, I would hit the buzzer and I wouldn't even doubt it. Number one on the list would be get out of the house, go out to eat, leave the kiddos and the chores and the dishes for somebody else. I think most moms would be like, man, let's get me out of the house for a little bit. You want to give me Mother's Day? Get this mother out of the house and do something else. That's what I would say.
Very good answer. Now, back to what I was getting to in terms of meat. Give me your top 3 meat choices. You mentioned steak. Anything else? Mother's Day approval for you, sir.
All right. Wonderful. I think I don't want to offend anybody, but I think women, from my experience, love filet. A filet mignon, of course, is a piece of beef tenderloin that's cut into a steak. Very lean, very tender. No, maybe not the most flavorful steak. Not a whole lot of fat, and fat's pretty flavorful. But I would say the filet mignon, I would say that's probably the number one Mother's Day steak. Women tend to like it. It's very clean. There's no gristle. It's very, and it's upscale. It's not cheap. That'd be my number one. Number two, I would say, we're going to say this is a steak because really it is prime rib. That's something that's really fantastic that not only moms, but everybody else kind of loves too. You get a little prime rib, prime rib is a roast. It's a ribeye roast, which means it is basically a long, giant, massive ribeye steak that has not been cut. That's all a prime rib is. And you cook it like a roast instead of cooking it like a steak because it's a big piece of meat. So, again, very fancy, upscale, tasty piece of meat. I think you can't go wrong with prime rib. And after that, for the discriminating tastes, maybe somebody kind of floats on over to my side, which they like the rendered fat, and I say ribeye steak. Ribeye is a fantastic steak. It's my favorite steak, and when done properly, I think it's probably the most flavorful steak. So, but you're not, a little more adventurous. You're gonna have to cut around a little bit of fat. You're gonna have to enjoy fat because that's part of the ribeye experience. It's delicious. It's the rendered fat. So filet, you can't go wrong. Prime rib, fantastic. A little bit more adventurous folks out there, I'd say ribeye. I'm happy with those top three.
That gives me a great subject for a future conversation with our barbecue barrister. I need to get you to rank your cuts of steak. You just mentioned ribeye was your favorite. I want to know what numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and on down the line are for you. But we'll save that discussion for another time. I am surprised, barbecue barrister, that you didn't list what I thought would be a sure top three, maybe even the number one choice when it comes to food for Mother's Day, the meat selection, and that would be ham. Are you
You
anti-ham?
know, yeah, I think a honey baked or maybe a sweet glazed ham, that's a fantastic option as well. I tend to, I don't know, I just for whatever reason, I may be off the map here, but I tend to think of going out, taking mom out to a place to eat, and I think of a ham being more like a banquet style at the house, like a family get together, which a lot of people probably do on Mother's Day as well. Family come over, particularly during this time where you're still limited on what you can do. I love it. I love ham, and I think that's a fantastic option there. It
Okay.
did not even cross my mind, John. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of a ham.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And of course, if you are going to eat at home, which a lot of people had to do, even if they wanted to go out here in 2020 for Mother's Day, you can go usually to one of these ham stores, and as long as they're open in your community, that makes for a really good choice because they pretty much do all the hard work for you, and you can serve it up and not spend hours and hours on a grill. If you do go get your ham, whether it's for Mother's Day or possibly for something else coming up here soon, or any time's a good time to cook a ham, let's be honest. What are some of your real quick tips on taking that ham from, let's say, a honey baked ham or Virginia baked ham or whatever the stores are that have those things? What is your little secret on making it taste a little bit better than what you get from the store?
This is going to shock you. This is going to shock everyone out there. But my advice would be the secret would be to put it on the smoker for a little bit of time.
And if you don't have a smoker,
If you don't have a smoker, then I would, well, it comes down to whether you like cold ham, you like warm ham. When I think
okay.
of honey baked or honey bee or whatever, I'm not, shilling for any particular brand here. They're all fantastic. But I think of a warmer ham. I think of that. That's what I think of. However, I know some people eat them cold, and I like it cold as well. So I think you need a nice sauce. If you're going to eat, whether you're going to eat cold ham, I think you need a nice sauce. I like to have a little bit of a roll or a biscuit because there's really not a whole heck of a lot better than a biscuit and ham. And if you melt a little cheese onto the biscuit and you make yourself a little ham and cheese biscuit, that's pretty fantastic as well. But there's some good sauces that go really well with a sweet ham. There's horseradish sauces. There's mustard-based sauces. I like a sauce with the ham personally, especially if I'm going to use a bread product to make a sandwich or a roll out of it, which that's another thing. A biscuit's fantastic with those sweet rolls. With ham is really, really wonderful. In fact, I'm getting a little mouth watery right now. But I would say if you're going to eat a warm ham, put it on the smoker. If not, if you can eat a cold ham, you need a good sauce, and I would add a biscuit or a roll to the equation. It's fine to eat a nice piece of honey baked ham by itself. I love it. But you got a little option there. You want to put a little on a roll with some Swiss cheese, something like that. It's fantastic.
He is our barbecue barrister here on the Y'all Show, our website, y'all.com. Make sure you go on there and find the barrister's reports each week. We have the Y'all TV Barbecue Barrister Report up each Tuesday, and that's available for you to go back and reference and learn so much more about what he has for us in terms of making our bellies full. We're not done with our Barbecue Barrister Report for this week. When we come back, as promised, we're going to get our barbecue barrister to earn his PhD in atmosphere, in science, and more. We're going to put him to work. We're going to get Professor Barrister Barbecue on with us, and I'll tell you why we're going to have that conversation. It's very important when it comes to grilling, and we'll have that conversation with our Barbecue Barrister right after this. Don't go anywhere. And we're back on the Y'all Show, our final segment, wrapping things up today with our barbecue barrister, Matt Heermans. And speaking of barbecue, we want you to tune in on Thursday. We're going to go on a virtual tour. Our spring swing tour continues. This time we'll be in the Alabama Mountain Lakes. That's North Alabama, the 14 counties stretching from the Mississippi line across to Georgia and on the Tennessee line there on the north end of Alabama. And we're going to have a great time talking to various people related to North Alabama. One of the great guests that we're going to bring on the Thursday virtual tour of North Alabama is the pitmaster at Big Bob Gibson's in Decatur, Alabama. And we're going to have him on to tell us, he's going to tell us all the secrets of that white sauce that you'll find there in Decatur at Big Bob Gibson's. I don't think he's going to quite give us the secret ingredient, but we're going to learn a lot about Big Bob Gibson's and how they do it with the pitmaster and owner. And that'll be part of our Thursday showcase of the Alabama Mountain Lakes as part of our spring swing tour, stop number 3 of the South. You don't want to miss out on the fun of that. Matt Heermans is on. We're having fun talking to him, and I know he's had a chance to have some of that good white sauce before in Decatur, Alabama. What'd you think?
I love the white sauce, John. It's I would say it's like a thin ranch. I mean, it's not quite ranch, but it's tangy and it's savory and it's vinegary and it's mayo-y. I love it. It's delicious. I don't know, probably best on chicken, I think, but I'm a big fan of that white sauce. I probably not for everybody, but I do love it.
Now, you're one of those so-called barbecue snobs, and you kind of keep up with this stuff. Have you seen or do you know of white sauce anywhere else in the South besides there in Decatur and North Alabama?
I've never seen it anywhere else. So I guess the answer to that
and
is...
you've been looking. Let's clarify. You would know it.
I've been looking for years, John. I've been researching for a very long time, any chance I get. So I've never seen a white sauce anywhere else other than that particular region there in Alabama. So, I'd be proud of it. I know, Big Bob Gibson's, that's a heck of a joint. Definitely encourage people to go check that out. Really classic place. And that white sauce, they dunk the chicken, the whole leg of the chicken, which is, in my opinion, is the best. They dunk it in the white sauce. They don't pour it on, dunk it in and pull it out. They get baptized, so it's delicious.
How about that? I didn't know that. We'll have a conversation about that on Thursday. Matt Heermans, hopefully maybe you can tune in and join us for that conversation.
Oh, I will.
Well, let's talk a little bit, because of Big Bob Gibson coming on Thursday, I did a little weekend research, and they were invited to, and you may know the exact name of this thing, it looks like an annual barbecue event in New York City. It's got a trendy name. They didn't have it this year, or they're not going to have it this year, but evidently a lot of barbecue guys from around the country descend upon Manhattan at some point, I think during the summer months, and they have a big old barbecue feast there, and people come out and partake. And Big Bob Gibson's has been there in years past, and they got a video I was watching of the pitmaster there in NYC, and he was talking about the way he does his barbecuing in Decatur, but when he took his show on the road to New York City, well, things changed. And he was talking about something that had never hit me. And since you're our barbecue barrister, and I'm sure you're our scientist when it comes to barbecuing too, let's talk about humidity and how that affects barbecue, because I know it does. What do we need to know? And depending on where you're located, how big of a deal is humidity and barbecuing, barrister?
Man, that's a great question. Okay, so, most of the South is going to be relatively humid. Parts are going to be less humid. You're talking about mountainous areas, maybe East Tennessee, Western Virginia, that type of area. Probably get up in the altitude, it's probably less humid, although I imagine down in the valleys it's still pretty sticky. But the South's a pretty humid place. I mean, from Arkansas to Florida, from eastern Texas over up to Virginia, we've got our share of humidity, and some places are very, very, very humid throughout the coastal and deep South for sure. So I think the South and humidity, first of all, are just you cannot separate them.
They're married. They're happily
They're
married.
married. Yeah, they are bonded together. They're stitched together. So we'll start off with that. But it's there are ways that humidity can affect a cook. The major thing that comes to mind for me is charcoal and wood. Um, Charcoal and wood are so the wood you're going to use to burn for barbecue is not green wood. It has been dried out. It has either been kiln dried at a factory where they heat it really hot. They don't burn it, but they dry it out. Or it's been sitting in somebody's backyard or field somewhere and allowing it to dry out. So the reason I bring that up is because it wants to suck up moisture. If it's dried out, charcoal, the same thing. Charcoal is pulverized wood product. Lump charcoal is just kind of chunks of wood that they've burned into charcoal, and again, at a very high heat. But then briquettes are just ground up versions of that smashed together. Long story short, charcoal and wood wants to suck up the atmosphere. So if you leave your charcoal bag open, or you leave your charcoal sitting there for a long period of time, or you don't seal it, or it's in a smoker for a long period of time, basically just like a long cook is just going to sit there, it will tend to become moist, and it will affect the burn time. It will affect the burn temperature. It will affect the burn rate because it will suck up some of that incredible humidity that we have across the South. So that's one thing. Same thing with wood. One of the common misconceptions, or one of the things people do with wood, or that they think you're supposed to do with wood if you're using chips or chunks, is to soak it in water. I would never, ever do that. I would tell anybody who's doing that to consider not doing it. There's no reason to do it. It gives you a funky, ugly, nasty smoke. And the reason I bring that up is because you don't want it to be wet from humidity either. You want the driest wood you can possibly get. The humidity also, it affects the outside temperature, so it acts like a blanket. So think about going outside when it's 80 and sticky versus when it's 90 and dry. The 80 and sticky, after a while, is going to get to you more than 90 and dry, just the way it is. It's because the humidity holds you like a blanket. It's very close. The moisture tracks heat and bounces around. It's like it's very, very close. That's kind of a word we use in the South. It's close outside, or it's thick. Same thing for cook. You'll tend to cook warmer on a humid night if you're cooking overnight or during the day than you would on a breezy, dry day. It's just the way it is. So you've got the moisture in your cook fuel, we'll call wood and charcoal cook fuel, and you've got the warm blanket of humidity that can raise the temperature in your cook versus a drier type of air. So absolutely, it can affect it.
What about the meat? Is the meat affected by humidity?
I would say the meat's not going to be terribly affected. The meat's going to be moist anyway. Even if you salt it overnight, like I tend to do on ribs to kind of remove some of the moisture, meat's going to be very, very moist. It's not a situation. A lot of people use water pans where you can have steam in there anyway, but not so much the meat. It's not necessarily going to affect the texture of the meat, in my opinion. Now, maybe if you're doing barbecue in Arizona where the humidity is down close to zero, you may want to add a little more fat, a little more moisture to your meat in the form of a mop or maybe an injection. But you're talking, that's an extreme. You're talking a desert extreme with almost no humidity. I think generally that's not going to be the effect. It's going to be the effect. The effect's going to be on the temperature of the cook and the fuel and the way that burns.
You sound like you know what you're talking about, and I'm not going to dispute you here on
Faked
today's
you out. No, I'm just
y'all
kidding.
show. I do want to ask you though, because we know in the South, most of us don't necessarily leave the South for months on end and go to, let's say, the North or even to Arizona for a couple of months. We're pretty much sheltering in place in the South year round, wherever we happen to live in the South. So we don't really have anything to judge it by living in other parts of the country. My question is, we know in the summertime, of course, it's ultra humid in most of the South. Is it as humid in the South and we don't even realize it in the winter months or in the early spring? And if so, does that mean we need to adjust when we put something out on the smoker?
Yeah, that's a interesting thing because sometimes you may not notice the humidity when the temperature is not that warm, although sometimes you will. In some places you can actually see it, and I think people would probably recognize what I'm talking about, even on a cool day. But the winter time and the fall, the late fall and winter, is typically the least humid time throughout the South. It just dries out a little bit, and people will get chapped lips and things like that. It's because your body gets used to the humidity. Same thing. If you come from someplace along the Gulf Coast, you spend too much time, or not too much time, you spend time in the desert arid Southwest, you will begin to have cracked knuckles and itchy eyes and things like that. You may think that it's nice and dry, but your body gets used to the humidity and essentially gets addicted to it. And I've experienced that myself. I think a lot of folks have over time. But anyway, the point of that is the least humid months are going to be winter and fall, and of course the most humid is going to be your spring, summer, and then early fall, say September. So, of course, then you're talking about fall and winter, you got a whole different bag there. Not only do you have less humidity, but you have a cool breeze, and you have drier air, and you have lower temperatures. So we've kind of talked about that before. Temperature is huge. Temperature is a big, big thing. You're going to have to burn a lot more fuel. You have to give a lot more oxygen to that smoker to keep it warm than you would on a sticky 90-degree, 85% humidity day, for sure.
Matt Herman's, one of the things you were talking early on in this conversation was about your wood. And I want to know, since you're all about the hickory, I want to know, what is the shelf life of that hickory when you have, let's say, 105-degree temperatures in the summer, and then it drops down to sometimes 0 degrees in certain portions of Dixie in the wintertime, and knowing that you have these atmospheric changes, what's the shelf life on your wood, Barbecue Barrister?
Well, the enemy of smoking wood is moisture. Okay, so um, as long as it's dry, as long as you keep it in a garage, as long as you keep it kind of sealed up in a place that's not going to get moldy, that's not going to get terribly moist, it'll last forever. I mean, this is wood we're talking about, and dry wood that's been kiln dried most of the time. So moisture's your enemy. As long as you keep it dry, the wood will last for a very long time.
No
Essentially,
matter what the temperature outside.
what's that?
No matter what the temperature outside.
No matter what the temperature. No, that's right. Now, the other side of that, if you got freezes, wood does have a certain. Even though we said it's dried, it is dried. Wood does still have a certain amount of moisture in it. So a freeze cycle, where the wood freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, that can affect it. That can kind of shorten the life. And you'll know if you're used to cooking, or even if you just get started cooking, you see crumbly wood. It looks like maybe it's starting to break down. You don't want to burn that. It's not going. Remember, it's basically food. It's the smoke is going to go into your mouth one way or the other. So. But no, if you keep your wood dry, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, as long as it's not freezing and doing that cycle, as long as it's not getting wet and sitting in wetness, that's why you'll see a lot of folks, if you've got a cord of wood, if somebody's doing a lot of barbecuing, they'll have a cord of hickory wood or pecan wood. There's all kinds of different wood. You want to cover it up with a tarp to keep it from getting that moisture. You want to keep it dry because moisture is the enemy. Like I said before, you don't want to smoke with wet wood. And if you've ever heard that rumor, you don't want to wet it. You don't want to soak it. You don't want to do that. So temperature's not going to bother you. Freezing or getting wet will have an effect. Getting wet will ruin the wood. So, yeah, that's about it.
Duly noted, Barbecue Barrister Matt Hermans. I do have to ask you, this is going back to my childhood, and I still have some bad memories when you're talking about stacking up wood. I happen to be old enough that I don't know if you ever heard of the whole craze of the 1970s and 80s when everybody had their wood heaters in their homes. Do you remember that craze?
Yeah, my grandparents actually they had a wood stove that heated their whole house in East Texas for, well, until now they still have it. So
Okay.
yeah, I do remember that they had cords of wood outside, usually post oak from around. So yes, I am.
A lot of that
Yeah,
started when we had the fuel crisis of the 70s, and people said, well, we'll just heat our home instead of doing it through the electricity. We'll go cut wood and burn those things. It was a rage there for a few years, and I happened to be a kid growing up in one of the homes where we had to have that wood stacked outside. And my whole point of bringing this up, Barbecue Barrister, is more than one time when little Johnny went out there to go get some wood, there was some kind of creature, either a rat or a snake, under the wood pile. So some of us are a little scared to have wood stacked around the house, if you know what I mean.
Spiders too.
Oh,
Yeah, black widows.
oh yeah,
Black widow spiders. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm
I've
sure they
I've
love hickory wood too.
I don't like them. Oh yeah, they absolutely. They love the smell of it. It's delicious. But
Matt,
yeah, no,
as we
I'm
wrap up
not a
with,
spider.
I got you. I don't like any of those things, but I'll take a spider over a snake any day. Matt, as we wrap up with you, any other, since you're our scientist for the day here on today's Y'all Show, any other atmospheric things we need to be on the lookout for when it comes to grilling outside? We've already talked about humidity in detail. Anything else we need to be aware of?
Wind
Wind.
is a big thing, and
So,
of course rain. I feel like mentioning rain is, that's obvious if you have water pouring on your smoker. And again, if you're cooking 12, 14, 15 hours, the good Lord may decide to send you some water, and that's it. You're not packing your meat up and putting it inside. So
what do you
I don't
do?
need to mention, I mean, if the water is smashing on the side of your smoker, it's going to affect your temperature, obviously. But wind, just wind generally, will have a profound effect on not only the burn
Hmm.
of your wood or your coal or both, but the temperature as well. Even on a warm day, if you've got a prevailing breeze coming through, it takes away a lot of heat. And the way most smokers work, if you've got a barrel smoker, you got a side box smoker, the way you regulate your heat is by either feeding or starving the fire of oxygen. So you can imagine if a wind comes by, a strong breeze comes by and forces air into these little vents and holes, you get more oxygen, you get more heat, you get a faster burn, you can really mess around with your temperature. So best thing to do is face any vents you're using away from the wind. And if you can't do that, just keep an eye on it and adjust accordingly. But a wind can certainly affect your smoke.
But don't let wind cancel your big barbecue plan.
Don't let anything cancel it.
Okay.
Nothing.
Not even a couple of tornadoes or thunderstorms in the area.
No.
Okay.
Don't do. Just step inside, go to the bathroom for a minute, come back out, check the meat, mop. You're good.
What about devices? Do you have any kind of barometer or anything like that you use when you grill to kind of make sure that things go well for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of really good thermometers. So I knew initially people
I
will
said
think,
barometer or something to check on.
oh, barometer.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are.
You know what? I've never seen a barbecue barometer, but I would, if there is one, I'm going to start looking into it
Well,
now. So I
not
don't know about
necessarily
a
for
barometer.
barbecue. I'm just talking about for the atmosphere. I didn't know if you needed to check your little gauge, your weather gauge,
Yeah.
before you start going with barbecuing.
Yeah, I've had a barometer in the backyard to check the humidity or the dew point, I guess, right? We call it the dew point. You know what? If you're going to be prepared, you might as well have that out there. Get your temperature gauge, get your thermometer that's accurate, get you a barometer that way you can measure, and then you know what? Get you one of those little wind speed things too, one of the little ones with the cups, because why not? You're going to be as prepared as possible, especially if people are waiting on that delicious barbecue. You don't want to leave it to the elements.
Let's face it, whenever you grill, you do it upright, you've put a lot of time, you put a lot of money into it, and you got a lot of people depending on you. And if it came down to the fact that you were too cheap to not go out and spend a couple of dollars to check on the environment or check out the Weather Channel maybe before you got going, we want you to be a success, just like our barbecue barrister. And those are the kind of
Yes.
things that here on today's report of our barbecue barrister, we get to cover these things and learn from our professor of barbecue and the atmosphere. It sounds like I'm pretty impressed.
Well, you've got pretty low standards, John. And I'm glad you do.
I am impressed, and you also have given us some good fodder for future discussions when it comes to talking about your style of steaks and so much more. But I'm glad to know after this very important conversation today, essentially what I think I heard from our barbecue barrister, you have no excuse to not grill. Don't let Mother Nature get in the way. I bet you even a snowstorm or sleet storm won't stop our big guy from barbecuing.
What's the old, the postman, the postal worker? I forget the little poem, but Just move that over to Pitmaster, and it's the same thing. Absolutely, neither rain nor dark of night or something. I don't know, but yeah, I've cooked through all of it. Maybe not. Maybe not. Some of it's more fun than others, but hey, if you're gonna do it, you can do it. You can adjust. You can make it work. I promise you.
Well, let's
Just
keep in
power
mind,
through it.
oftentimes when you're around a grill, it's going to be hot. And imagine being around a smoker when it's 100 degrees outside and you mix in the fire and all that. It's got to be uncomfortable. I guess it's kind of like going to a sporting event. You're kind of looking for the post-game shower at some point, unless your sweetie lets you sneak on into bed without taking a shower after a long day smoking.
Yeah, I mean, you combine the perspiration with the various wood smokes, and I don't. I think you better put a shower in the cards, no matter what. I would say
Well,
some of us would take a little hickory smoke and dab here, a little pork fat here, and just think that's a wonderful aura to have. But if you want to have a happy marriage, you're probably going to take a shower.
I understand. Beauty tips from our barbecue barrister, Matt Hermans, on today's Y'all Show. Great information. I'm glad we brought it up to you, sir. We look forward to talking with you again next week, and thank you for coming on the Y'all Show, Matt Hermans.
Can't wait. See you then.
All right, that will wrap up another exciting edition of the show that's all about the South. Make sure you stay right here for the Wednesday Y'all Show. We'll have country music talk, ACC talk, and so much more. And don't forget, we're going to North Alabama on Thursday for our little virtual tour, and some barbecue talk there, courtesy of Big Bob Gibson's, will be part of the fun. All that right here on the Y'all Show with your host, the general of all things Southern, John Rawl. Thanks for being a part of our program.